for our virtual forum. And thanks also to our 4 presenters who have agreed to put together some exciting content for us. As usual, we've got a good mix of topics that we hope you all find valuable one way or another. And if you have any feedback on the format, on the content, or anything that you think we could do a better job of, please send me an email. But yeah, so I'll hand over the stage, the virtual stage, to our first speaker, Martin Abbott. Over to you, Martin. You've got 7-8 minutes.
Well, first off, can you see my slides? I guess that's the most important question.
Yes, we can see your slides.
Fantastic. So if I start this off.
Perfect.
Cool, you can see it. Fantastic. Right, so before I do anything else, let me just set a timer. So yeah, I thought I'd talk about IoT and what IoT kind of is and isn't. I suppose it's somewhat a personal view, but hopefully you'd agree. So I've been an MVP for 4 years in Azure. I've recently been made or joined the Regional Directors Program as well. You may know me from things such as Global Azure Bootcamp, Global Integration Bootcamp, and a few other things. I also run the Perth Azure User Group over here. So that's just a little bit about me. We'll kick off. So I think for me, at least, the word things in Internet of Things and the Internet of Things itself has become conflated. I don't think industry analysts have helped by saying things like 25 billion connected things by 2021. It kind of gives the impression that the Internet of Things is things. And I'm kind of keen to change people's views of that, really. So I thought I'd sort of talk about what IoT kind of isn't as far as I'm concerned. Really, that's things. So things like Raspberry Pis or sensors or devices. Things like devices connected to other things that may be connected to your laptop that you're having a bit of a play with. Whilst they are things, I don't really think that that constitutes the Internet of Things. So what do I think does constitute the Internet of Things? Well, not surprisingly, it is things, but it's not just things. When you have things, things need to be connected to something in order for them to be relevant. That connection transfers some data, typically, maybe sensor data, maybe general information. That data tends to be analyzed. That could be machine learning, or it could just be standard predictive modeling. Could be anything really in terms of analytics. And then there needs to be some kind of action. That action could be, say, a dashboard which provides information, or it could be something significantly more complex. So this is what I like to call, and it's not just me, by the way, the IoT value chain. So I think the key thing here is that IoT is not just about things. It's about all of this as a solution, as a project. And just spelling that out a bit more. No one walks in on a Monday morning and says, you know what, I want to buy some IoT. So what is it that they're after when they look at an IoT project specifically? Well, it's about data. So sensors capture data and move them somewhere, and something at the back end may send some data back again. This is a very, very important point. It's about intelligent action or some form of action. Like I said before, that may be a dashboard, which is just showing some metrics, or it may be a machine, or it may be an operator setting, say, a machine to turn a fan on because something's got too hot. It could be all of these things, but there has to be an action at the end of it for it to, as far as I'm concerned, tick a box to say that it's an IoT solution. Because really, the key point about that is that it's about value. So IoT has to deliver some kind of value. Now that value is intrinsic, and your and anybody else's view of value could be different to somebody else's view of value. And you know, basically any commercial device has to eventually deliver some kind of value to the consumer of that commercial device. When you build things, building hardware is quite difficult. It takes a lot of time. There's very good organizations that do that specifically. But the one thing that you do have in your toolkit, of course, is the Azure platform, and that provides a lot of opportunities to build out your entire IoT solution across, I mean, obviously all of the services that IoT provides, that Azure provides. So just an example of what some of those things may be. So here we have what may typically constitute an IoT solution. So we've got devices on the left-hand side. We've got this thing called Edge. So Edge Compute is another subject that I'll probably cover at a different time. Inside Azure itself, we have the IoT Hub, which is, well, it says the cloud gateway, but it's also the thing that manages device lifecycle and is a very important part from a connectivity perspective. Then there's all the other stuff in terms of data and analytics. So data, when we land the data, it's going to be stored somewhere. That can be very large volumes of data. There's typical solutions around cold and hot path analytics, whether that's Stream Analytics or Azure Databricks, and machine learning for the cold path. There's also something called time series insights, which allows you to do near times. That's basically data that does pre-aggregation. It's kind of almost like a time series database, but not quite. That does pre-aggregation and is delayed by about a minute, but it allows you to look massively across massive estate of devices to look for anomalies and so on and so forth. All the way over to the right-hand side, where we have things that constitute essentially action. So that action could be workflow with something like Logic Apps, or it could be a dashboard with Power BI, or exposing data to another service through an API, and so on and so forth. I won't go too much into the bits at the bottom, but basically they're just pre-configured solutions such as remote monitoring, connected factory, that are just out-of-the-box solutions that you can take and can customize yourself. And then there's a SaaS offering called IoT Central. So I thought I'd just play that out as a couple of scenarios. I live in a mining town, but I'm not going to talk about mining. What I'm going to talk about is, well, food, something close to my heart. So the first one I thought I'd talk about in terms of an example of a good IoT project is oysters. So there's an organisation over in Sydney that created a solution for oyster farmers because, I guess most people may or may not know this. Basically, oysters are extremely sensitive to the salinity of water. And if you find that the water is dropping too heavily in salinity, they can become toxic for human consumption. You have to get them out of the water. So you imagine what feeds into that if these things are being grown in estuaries and so on and so forth. Weather events, rain up in the hills can flow into the rivers. That river goes into the sea, and the sea then drops in salinity, and these things become toxic. So having a mechanism by which you can manage that can have a massive impact on what is essentially a multi-billion-dollar industry. So think about value. And the other one is cows. So imagine Kobe beef cows in Japan. So one of the things that cows do when they're ready to be inseminated is walk more. So this particular solution was a very simple thing. They just put an ankle bracelet that had a GPS tracker on it. And when the cows started to walk more, they knew that they had to get the bull in the field because they wanted to inseminate the cows. Again, multi-billion-dollar industry. So the key point there really is that whilst there were devices, there's also a lot of other things going on in those kind of solutions. So IoT crosses the application stack, as I say. So it could be something as simple as a dashboard, as I mentioned, some workflow process which may provide feedback to individuals, or it may provide feedback to the device itself. But then there's also the opportunity to have machine-to-machine communications. So one machine acting robotically to automate another machine. And again, these are all examples of typical IoT projects that you see in the field. So the one thing I do want to mention, though, is that whilst it is about value, and I urge you to search this up on YouTube, by the way, there is a very good video called The Internet of Term I won't say, but it has the strapline this. Just because it's connected doesn't mean it's smart. And that's a very key point, because the key takeaway from all of this, and I'm very short of time now, the key takeaway from all of this is it's about value. So if you've got a toothbrush, a smart toothbrush, maybe that provides you value. If you've got a mining train that's fully automated and saves billions of dollars a year because it's fully automated, maybe that's what defines value. But it is important that it has to have value. And that, I think, is the key outcome. There is also another presentation I'll do at some point, which is about the way that you can change your entire business focus and models as a result of IoT. But for now, I think I'm about 20 seconds over. I should just say thank you and hand it out to questions. Any questions?
Any questions? Surely we have questions. We always have questions. I can see Mick Bedrins commented that, did you mean, Mick, were you talking about the oysters? or the cows? Oh, yes. Okay.
I can't see any comments, but
It's in the chat window. Yeah, I really love that, Martin. That was fantastic. I have a question. Who or how do you actually determine the value?
that is a very good question. I think it kind of depends on the solution that you're trying to solve, or the problem you're trying to solve. So like I say, it may well be, and there's a lot of retail devices that deliver value, I suppose, to certain people. The one thing I didn't mention was toilet seats. There are toilet seats that you can get, smart toilet seats. Now, maybe that's what defines value for you. Maybe the thing that defines value there is that you like a nice warm bum when you go to the bathroom. Maybe the smart toothbrush, as an example, is that you want to know that your kids are cleaning their teeth correctly. Maybe that's what defines value. But if it's more a sort of IoT project, then really that's a case of having a discussion with the subject matter experts, the business owners, trying to understand what a typical example is: process optimization or predictive monitoring. So as you know, when you can get people out to repair machines, that sort of thing. Those are a little more intangible, I guess, and you do have to have a deeper discussion as to, for instance, if you're optimizing a mining circuit, having an understanding or talking to the mining engineers about what they're digging out of the ground, what the process is, where they think the problems are with the process, trying to get an understanding of how much extra tonnage you can get as a result of that. Once you get to those kind of metrics, obviously you can start measuring value, but it isn't an obvious thing to do, so it is quite difficult. But the subject matter experts is the simple answer, really.
Okay. Oh.
Just a quick question, if that's okay, Martin. Craig here. I know with a lot of these days, people, when we're talking about IoT, the security comes up quite a bit. I guess my question is sort of twofold in that. First of all, how do we deal from an endpoint protection sort of? How do we deal with managing endpoint security when potentially the device is potentially unmanageable? And secondly, how do you feel about obviously all these IoT devices these days that are potentially sending data to third-party companies and what's actually potentially happening with all of that data as well?
So the first question around security is really you go as deep with security as you like, and that's, I think, the same in any sort of scenario. So certainly from the perspective of IoT Hub, the communication is device initiated, so the device has to call home. So you can't have IoT Hub send data out or send a communication request out to a device. So that certainly aids security. You can do things like bake, say, a certificate into the silicon, so that only that device with that thumbprint can connect, because that's what IoT Hub has deemed to be the correct security device. And there's actually a bunch of other devices around now, of which IoT Sphere is one example, which have things like secure enclaves, so trusted execution environments. So in other words, when you burn your code onto that device, that code can only run on that device. So there are ways of getting around a lot of the security, but of course, it's really incumbent on the people building those devices to make sure that they are building them in a way that's that satisfies the security requirements. Now, in terms of data, one thing we see quite often, certainly in mining, is that the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, so people who build the trucks and that sort of stuff, tend to have the data sent back to them and keep hold of it, and make it very difficult for you to get access to that data. That model is starting to change. And one of the things I didn't talk about in the presentation, but I'll talk about very briefly now, is around how you maybe transform your business based on provision of that data in a different business model. But by and large, a lot of the data that you're transmitting, whilst sensitive to your organization, is not, personally identifiable, I guess. But how you store that data, how you give access to that data, those rules don't change just because it's an IoT project. The main crux of the Prezo actually was really that an IoT project is just like any other project.
Fantastic.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much, Martin. I'm just, sorry. I just am concerned about, mindful of our time, and I'll move on to our next presenter. And then if we have enough time later at the end of the call, maybe we can take more questions for IoT. And it's great to see that we've got several other people interested in it, and maybe the next round of presentation will be actual examples of what people have built. I know Bryn Lewis has been working with some kids in Christchurch on some of their IoT projects. It would be good to see how this translates to like how we teach kids in terms of creating finding and creating that value, and obviously like all the other issues about that data. And yeah, cool. All right, thanks, Martin. Really excellent way to start.
No problem.
Our virtual meetup, but I might hand over the stage to Minda. Minda is our one of our Excel MVPs based on the Sunshine Coast. Minda, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Let me share my screen.
All good. So might get you to introduce yourself and how long you've been in the program for, just as Martin did, and then take it away.
Okay, sure. Can you see my screen first of all?
Yes, you can.
Great. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Minda Tracy. I have been an MVP for 1, 2, 3, 4, just counting my discs, 6 years. Excel MVP, as Shiva said, based on Sunshine Coast. But I've been running my my online training hub, which is my website, for about, I think it's 11 years now. So today I want to introduce you to dynamic arrays, which were, well, Microsoft started the rollout in September 2018, and it's a major change to the way the Excel Calc engine works for Office 365 users. It affects 3 areas of Excel, and let me just click. Okay, so firstly, in the past, when you entered an array formula, you would press Control, Shift, and Enter. And Excel would insert the curly braces around the formula, and these braces are like barbed wire for novice users, and it really sort of sends a message, don't mess with these unless you're an Excel ninja. But now every formula is treated as an array formula, and we no longer need to press Control, Shift, and Enter. So there's sort of a saying going around that Control, Shift, and Enter is dead. And notice as well, with the new array formulas, we no longer have the curly braces. The second change that you'll notice is formulas that return multiple values will now spill the results to neighboring cells. And you can see this is a regular SUMIF formula, and it's spilled the results to the cells below. Now, I think you'll agree this is a massive change to Excel, because it fundamentally changes the way formulas that we've always used, the way that they work. This spill ability is completely new. And now that we have this new array functionality, we have a set of exciting new functions that utilize that ability to spill results. Now, as I said at the beginning, dynamic arrays are only available to Office 365 users on the Insiders channel. They're not even GA yet, so if you want to get your hands on them, you have to go on Insiders, which probably a lot of you already are. So now that we've done our introduction, let's dive in, and I'll share my Excel screen with you, and we'll look at some examples. I'll do as many as I can in the time we have left. So most of you will have wanted to get a unique list of values from a table or a database, and now we have a function called unique. So it's dead easy, and if you've ever tried to do this in the past, you need to be pretty good at formulas to create a unique list that works on any list of data, whether it's sorted or not. Once you've got that unique list, you're going to want to do something like probably sort it. So let's use the new sort function to sort it. And it's as simple as that. We can then reference that formula. So let's do a sum if I could type. Let's sum the budget values based on the business areas. And the criteria is going to be this list here. Now, normally, if you're familiar with SUMIF, normally that argument would be a single cell or a single value. But I've referenced that whole range. And notice that it's got this new hash at the end. This is the spilled range operator. So now I don't need to write a dynamic named range to reference a range of cells that might grow or contract. I can simply reference my spilled range with the hash, and it actually automatically populates for me. So let's sum the budget values. And when I press enter, my sum if formula that never used to spill before now spills. And you can see that the range that is spilled has this blue box around it telling you that it's a special range, a spilled range. And if you look in the formula bar, you can see that the formula is grayed out except for the first one. So just like a multi-cell array formula, you can't edit any of the spilled range except for the very first cell. And what happens then if there's something in the way of that spilled range? So let's just put some text in a cell. You can see it gives us a spilled error. So you don't need to worry that now all of a sudden these formulas are going to be spilling all over the existing data in your workbooks. It won't. It'll give you a spilled error. I can delete that and it fixes the error. So that's a nice safety net for us. And what happens if we make a change to the data? So let me change this to HR. Sorry, you notice that HR is now on my list. I haven't had to update it. There's no maintenance required of that formula anymore. And likewise, because I've referenced a table, if I type in a new value here, and let's put it in an amount, it's automatically included in my list. It's sorted. It's just zero maintenance. You can literally give this to your users and they don't need to tinker with your formulas. It's super robust. So that's unique and a quick introduction to sort. There's obviously more to these functions. I'm just going to give you a whirlwind tour because I haven't got much time. The next one I want to just quickly show you is sort. Oops, it helps if you start with equal. So sort can do more than just sort a single list. I can sort a whole, oh, actually, that's not the one I want to do. It's this one here. Okay. Oh, my Excel's having a tantrum. Hold on. Or maybe I pressed that F1 key accidentally. All right. So I want to sort this table. Oh, it's not happy. Let's sort this table. And I want to sort it based on the budget column. So that's the fourth column. And I want to sort it in descending order based on the budget amounts. And I want to sort the rows. So let's do that. And now I have a sorted table with the budget amounts in descending order. Now, the old array formula version for that kind of formula was just mind-boggling and would have scared most people away. Let's look at filter. Filter allows us to extract data from an existing data set. So let's extract the data in this table where the department equals sales. Oops. It's not case sensitive, but you have to spell properly.
Mindy, could you zoom in?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. All right.
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
I'm going to filter this table where the department equals sales. And if there's no records, I want it just to return the text, no records. And there we have our data extracted. If I were to remove all the sales values now, it just returns the text, no records. So that's just one use of filter. There's tons of uses for it. How much time have I got left? Oh, I'm up to 8 minutes already. All right, let me show you round array. Round array is great for if you're doing Monte Carlo analysis or something like that. So I can generate an array of, say, 5 rows by 3 columns. I want it to start at 5, max of 10, and I want whole numbers. And there is my round array. what else? Let me skip to sequence and we'll quickly do this as the last function. So sequence generates a sequence of values. I can specify the rows. So let's say 5 rows, 1 column wide, start at 5 and increment by 10. And there's my sequence. So that's just a quick whirlwind of the new functions. As I said, there's tons more they can do. I should point out that if you have the new dynamic array functionality and you have one of your workbooks opened by a user in a version of Excel that doesn't have dynamic arrays, then Excel will convert those formulas to legacy array formulas, sort of put the curly braces back in. Obviously, if you use a function that they don't have, then it will prefix it with the Excel FN to say this is a function you don't have. If you mess with it, you'll break it, but if you don't mess with it, it's perfectly fine. And then when you open that workbook up again, it will remove the curly braces and the Excel FN prefix from any of the functions that are dynamic arrays. So the workbooks should round trip without any problems for users that don't have dynamic arrays. So that kind of wraps it up. She didn't want me to go into too many advanced techniques, but hopefully you all followed that. And if you want the workbook, I'm happy to email it to you. It's got all the function descriptions and some more examples and that kind of thing. So thank you for listening.
That was fantastic. I don't know about if you can see the chat window, Minda.
I can't open it. I was trying to earlier.
Well, okay. So you see, there's like a well, it's not a thought bubble, but there's like a to the right of the 3 dots. There's like
I clicked on that and I can see the people, but I can't see the chat.
Well, on behalf of everyone typing in their comments, everyone saying that was incredibly awesome. That was really good. And yes, we would love to be able to, if you could share this spreadsheet to us so we can pick up, or obviously this is recorded so people can just play back and forth the actual demonstration. But yeah, that was really good. Any questions? No questions, surely.
Just replying to Tim, so that needs Insider, right, on the fast ring to run? Any idea when that is going to be generally available?
We hope very soon, but no, we don't. They haven't told us. Actually, one of the Excel MVPs asked today, and no reply yet. So no, we don't know. But a new function has just come out, XLOOKUP, and it relies on dynamic array functionality as well. So hopefully very soon.
Awesome, thank you. And it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Cool. So I think, Minda, everyone's just internalizing all of that amazing new tricks. But yes, please feel free to, if you can upload this into the channel so people can easily just find it in Teams, that would be terrific. But yes, that was incredible.
Thank you. All right, I'll let go of my screen.
Cool. All right, so Doug, I think you're up next.
Righto. Okay, can you see that screen, I guess? Pretty picture?
Yes, we can see that beautiful photo of, yep, cool.
That's Lake Ontario in January.
Wow.
And actually in the foreground, it's ice. I've been an MVP for 22 years, I think. So, but what I'm going to show you today is my Merge Tools utilities, which when you load this ad in, it'll add a Merge Tools tab to the ribbon, and there are these facilities on it. There's a many-tool one, which is almost the reverse of one of the things that Minda showed us, but it allows you to create things like invoices and that sort of thing, where you have a number of records with one field with common data, and it groups all the records together. Then we have the ability to merge with charts that are individual to each record. Create a merge document that contains content controls. These things you can't do with the normal mail merge facility. A duplex merge allows you to do things like postcards, where you have a personal message on one side and say the address on the other side, and it handles that. One, merging with legacy form fields, which is similar to the content control one, but it uses the old style legacy form fields, and for that you have to use a macro to protect the form because you can't do it with a mail merge main document. Then the one that I really started was merging with attachments. I used to send out requests for proposals and wanted to include specifications and that sort of thing with a letter that I merged to each of the recipients. Another one just allows you to merge to individual documents in either the form of a PDF or a Word document with the file name taken from the data source. And the final one allows you, if you've got a printer that can staple things together, it will execute a merge, sending the record output from each record to the printer individually so that they can be stapled together. Okay, well, I'll show you a couple of these in operation. This is the many-to-one type merge, where quite often here the people were making gifts to this organization, and they wanted to send out a record to them of the gift, so that when we use that facility, I want me to save it first. I didn't realize I'd changed it anyway. We have to select the key field that will group the records together, and I think I got the right one. I think it was the name that was the key field. We have a header row in this case, and we also have a total row, so we would have these two boxes checked. But if you have a situation where you don't have a total, you would uncheck one of these boxes. Then we can execute this merge to a number of destinations, and this is common for nearly all of these things, either to individual Word files, PDF files, merge direct to a printer, send them output as in the body of an email message, or attached to an email message in either Word or PDF format. So I'll just do it to PDF files here at the moment. We've got to select a field for the file name, and then we continue, and we've got to tell it to save it somewhere. I put a folder here somewhere. I put a whole folder for results for the many-to-one. So and I click on OK. You don't see very much happening in this one except for a little bit of hourglass thing there. And if I go to that folder that I created, went to there. Where was it? Created these letters in there, and if I open one up, oh, that wasn't a very good one because they only had one donation. Here it created a, anyway, it's not on the screen that you want to see, is it? Can you see that result there now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Yes.
See, it created a document with a record of all of the donations that that person has made with a total on it. I'll put that away for the moment and go to the other one, the chart merge. This one's a little bit more interesting because you'll see a little bit of activity. I'll start off by saving it because it probably, I don't know whether I had or not, but when we use the chart merge one, we select the destination again, similar to before. We'll do it to a PDF file, and we need a file name for it. So the file name happens to be this one, and we've got to tell it where to save it. And here we've got a facility now. We can either do all of them, or we can select to just do some of the records or select individual ones, but we'll do them all, not too many here. So we click on OK. And then this runs through and creates the individual chart for each of the persons that were there. So we, and you know, there's, pull this back up here. So for each record, it creates a document with an individual chart in it. Maybe I've run out of time, I don't know. But
you still have time.
Well, anyway, this add-in you can download from this page of my OneDrive, and you can play with it. There's instructions for how to set it up and how you use each of the individual things. It's been downloaded something like 50,000 times, I think. I don't know how many people actually use it when they download it, but I get quite a bit of feedback from it, and I do develop a lot of people, particularly some of them, the merge with charts for the Rafa Nadal Institute of Tennis. They wanted to do 30 charts for each record, so I do quite a bit of customization of it for various organizations. That was what I wanted to show you. If there's any questions or...
That was marvelous. Thank you, Doug. That was really cool. I wish I had this tool earlier.
Yeah, well, you can download a copy from there.
Yes, and thanks, Wagner, for typing the link. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, again, just amazing. I'm downloading it now on the page.
Yeah.
Doug, I do. So can you show us what the source file for the, like, say, the graph one looks like?
Yes. Start Excel up. Put it up here. Is it in my recent files or not? I don't know. Maybe it. No, I have to. Well, I don't like opening things this way. The data is in a regular sort of mail merge format. There's a chart sheet which has a data row here, and then there are index formula in these cells over here, which are what are actually charted. And the way the system works is it changes the value in this cell here which brings in the data from the next record. So as you change this cell here, so that's what it do. That's really how it works. It changes, gets the changes that value there, or it iterates through the data in the data sheet and changing the value in that cell to the record number, and then the chart is based on this data up here.
That's really cool.
Yeah, well, it took a while to work out how to do it. The first time I did it was actually, well, it's used a lot by companies who want to send out a benefit statement with a pie chart in it, so much as salary, so much as medical, dental, that sort of thing. And it was the British Columbia Institute of Technology that wanted it first, and the first version of it, of course, was unique to them, and it didn't have the interface that it now has, so that basically anybody can use it if they set up their data source in the correct way. In the mail merge main document, there's a table that has a bookmark in it, which is how it identifies where to copy and paste the chart from the Excel thing.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one question. What did you write the add in? What tools did you use?
Sorry?
What tools did you use to write the ad?
Oh, it's just Visual Basic.
Oh, cool.
I don't know anything. I'm too old to learn anything else.
Very cool.
I tried, but it didn't work.
Cool. Any other questions for Doug? Doug, that was incredible. That was really cool. Once again, the link, Wagner's just written it in the chat room. Oh, sorry, not chat room, the chat window, in case anyone wants to find it.
I'll do that, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Doug. That was really helpful. That might spike the download of your sharing that with us. Will spike the download rate of that tool, I think. Okay, our final speaker, Simon Terry, over to you. As the rest, tell us who you are and you know what you've been doing and how long you've been in the program for, and anything else you think we should know about you.
Thanks, Shiva. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm an Office MVP and have been in the program for 4 years. And most of my work is assisting clients with change and adoption, but particularly with a focus about how work is changing, and that's really what I wanted to focus on today. And particularly a tool that I've found really powerful in developing my profile and my connection with people across both the program and you know, using social media, but also something that I encourage clients to explore when they're looking at learning and collaboration in their organizations. And that's this idea of working out loud. So let me just kind of give a bit of context. Most people would be familiar with work.
Simon, we've lost your audio.
Okay, is that better, Shiva?
Yes.
Sorry about that. So most people would be familiar with the changes that are happening in organizations, you know, driven by the work we're all doing. So, you know, whether it's helping organizations to leverage cloud technology, mobile technology, and so on, there's a significant volume of change. And the organizations that I'm working with are really highlighting the need to you know, accelerate the pace of learning and collaboration and change to be able to respond to this really challenging environment. And what they're looking for is they're looking for collaboration at a scale and at a pace and in ways that they've probably never tried it before. So, you know, we're used to the environment of getting together and working in teams, and, you know, products like Microsoft Teams and email and so on have done that, you know, very well for us. But now organizations are really stretching themselves into how do they bring more external collaboration partners in to projects that they're running? How do they share and work on documents in real time? How do they reach beyond, you know, just the particular function that people are working in and stretch across the whole organization? That sort of outer loop, for those familiar with Microsoft's approach to collaboration. And then the ability to kind of bring people in from the wider world. And there's a kind of key difference between the left-hand side groups and the right-hand side groups. In the left-hand side groups here, you're talking about known collaborators. You're talking about the people who are involved in projects. And it's pretty easy in that context to set up, you know, teams and invite in guest users and bring in a defined group of people. But the power of working out loud is it really starts to offer opportunities on that right-hand side. What about the people you don't know could add value to your work? They could add value because they know something that could help you solve a problem, or they could add some voluntary and discretionary effort to the work you're doing. How do you engage and bring those people into your work? And how do you allow those people to benefit by knowing that you're doing this work and learning from the process of you doing that work? And that's really where working out loud comes in. So, you know, a little definition, but working out loud is a pretty simple idea. You know, it's sharing work in progress So, sharing that work while it's going on with a relevant group of people in a public and open way to enable them to participate in that work, to participate by watching it, by knowing it exists, by learning, and ultimately by getting engaged and starting to contribute their elements to the project. This, coming to the theme of value that, we've talked about in each of the talks today, working out loud is a real driver of value in collaboration. So many of the clients I work with, one of the first things that happens when their teams start working out loud is they discover the amount of duplication going on in their organization. The same people are doing the same tasks in different teams. And making that open and transparent and sharing that work while it's going on enable those people to identify those situations where they're duplicating work and really, start to focus. And people can start to identify activities and get engaged in the relevant, by requesting access to the relevant Teams channel or by, offering a comment in Yammer or diving into a document. If people can see it, they've got a chance to get involved and start to help out. And one of the key things here that, people often struggle with is this idea of sharing work while it's still in progress. We've all been trained to kind of put on our best display and only show things when they're finished and when they're perfect. But, by sharing stuff as it's going along, one of the key things is we really open up that work. And what I like to, share with people is that vulnerability that comes from, opening up the work is a really big superpower for engagement and for attracting other people into the work we're doing. It helps us be reminded of the limits of our knowledge and our capability. I've had so many valuable contributions across so many different channels where people have come in and pointed out a limitation to an approach that we're doing, or I've learned something myself from the contributions of others. Because people get to see the work develop, you're much more influential and credible and engaging to others. This can be a big piece about addressing issues of diversity and inclusion. If work is open and transparent, it's a bit easier for people to sidle in and get involved in that work. Whereas if they only see the finished product, sometimes, and particularly for people like ourselves who base our work in expertise, it can be really daunting for other people to kind of come and ask a question or to embrace the fact that they may not have all the answers. Sharing that sometimes you don't have the answers is highly engaging to other people. And most importantly of all, embracing these kinds of vulnerabilities openly, inviting the contributions of others really leverages their ability to help you get your work done. I mean, we've all seen through, whether it's open source software or other environments, there's so much that can be done when you bring diverse groups of people together to contribute to work. And I find that encouraging organizations to share the story internally about the power of working out loud, to make it safe for people to work out loud, and to have leaders encouraging and fostering that through tools like Teams and Yammer is a really powerful opportunity. And that's really all I wanted to share today. Nice and short and sharp and focused, but I'm happy to take any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Simon. That was really I like the succinctness of it. It was really straight to the point, and I like it. And I couldn't overemphasize how much I would love to see our MVPs working out loud in terms of so building each other up within our community. And yeah, thank you for that. Any questions or reactions?
Yeah, I've got one. Hey, great job, Simon. What have you seen? How does this work with practices like Agile? Do you see this supporting each other? It sounds really awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, and it's absolutely consistent with Agile, because obviously, Agile is about giving teams autonomy of their work and making that work transparent to their peers, So the two work hand in hand. I find that when the culture of working out loud is distributed across the organization, it starts to address some of those problems organizations have about agile scaling. Agile works great in small groups of people. How do you make sure two agile teams aren't bumping into each other? Working out loud across the boundaries of those teams, helping, whether it's through Kanban boards that are distributed widely or just being more transparent about that work, is a real foundation of being able to scale up the work we're all doing around, implementing agile processes. So, working out loud is kind of a cultural practice. It can be used in a lot of different ways in a lot of different contexts, but it absolutely supports that goal of more agile organizations and the delivery of agile practices across organizations.
Love it. Love
it. For people who want more, there's heaps of material on working out loud, and there's a number of different formal practices and approaches that people can explore to bring into their organization. And for people who really want to get involved, in November each year, we have International Working Out Loud Week, in which we encourage people to, work out loud, both in their organizations and also on social media, to show people the work they're doing and to share how working out loud has benefited their work and their practice.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
How would you encourage people who, I guess, think that their work is secret or confidential or not for public consumption to get on board?
Look, that's a great question, because a lot of people are concerned about privacy and confidentiality and security questions about working out loud. I would always encourage people to understand their legal and other policy obligations, but often people can find ways to share the work they're doing without sharing the piece that is private or secret. You can share approaches to work. You don't have to share the actual work. You could share, what you've learnt from the work, which is sort of one degree of remove. So if people are really interested in engaging others and drawing people into that work, then there's certainly ways that you can work around particular limitations. You may not, for example, in some financial services and healthcare organizations I work with, you can never share individual client information because it is private and secure. But you can certainly talk about those client scenarios without identifying that client. And so there's ways for people to surface their work, share it with their colleagues, and invite people in to help them as that work's going along.
Cool. Well, does anyone else have questions for Simon? Okay, absolute silence, I guess.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was really good. It's a good way to cap off the first three presentations that we just had. I just want to open the virtual floor, to any announcements that anyone has about any upcoming events or user group, or let's start working out loud. And talking about some of the work that we want to get some people involved in, or anyone who needs help with anything. I'm opening the floor, and you can use your, you can actually speak up instead of typing in the chat window. Wow, no one needs help with anything, really.
I'll just add, there was one thing I meant to demonstrate as well, that I put a note about it in the chat window as a little utility to facilitate adding the formatting switches to merge fields.
Cool.
So people have probably seen that in the chat window.
Sure.
I meant to demonstrate that too.
Yeah, I saw that one. Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. Well, if no one wants to make announcements, I will hog the last few minutes before we wrap up. So before we started the call, in case you missed it, I had sent out our monthly ANZ updates featuring mostly content around creating content and also making an impact. And I hope that you all have make some time to go through them, because they're really good content that your fellow MVPs had put together. I'd love to get some feedback on what other kinds of content you'd like to see in the next few months, so we can make them happen. Also, reminding everyone that we do, if you had not read the ANZ updates, we do have a call for presenters for the Learn and Lunch here at the Reactor in Sydney. If you are interested in presenting, now I realize it's not ideal for everyone, not everyone's in Sydney. However, I know that a lot of you travel as well and come to Sydney. And so if you are available to present on a Tuesday or a Thursday, please contact me and I'll put you in touch with my colleagues who are organizing this. They'll help you. Well, I think from my understanding, they'll definitely be promoting the event on your behalf. So all you need to do is rock up and present. In saying that, if you're actually going to be in Sydney and want to present and make the most of your time here, but that doesn't fall on a Tuesday or a Thursday, well, still, please let me know. We'll make sure that we can find some time to, but obviously, please let us know with enough notice, not 2 days before when you arrive, so we can actually make it happen. John Liu says, if you are keen to present at the M365 Saturday in Sydney, there's a call for speakers and the link is in the chat window. And yeah, is there anything else that I missed? Any event? Any?
Shiva, I remember that you are planning something in Auckland in September.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. Yes, on the 26th of September, that's a Thursday, we are going to have our next stop for the for our community, well, New Zealand community. Obviously, anyone from Australia who happens to be in Auckland at the time, please feel free to join us. I will be in touch, hopefully next week, with some details. And I'm glad that Steve will be flying in from Christchurch for that. He'll be one of our speakers that evening, and he'll be telling us about how successful the Christchurch Hackathon is. Amongst other things. Yeah. And actually, while I've got everyone, the other event that we're still hatching at the moment is another event in Auckland where my colleague Sonia will be in New Zealand for several events. I believe she's lined up to speak at the Azure user group over there. Dan, that's correct. Yes,
she has. Yeah, yep. She has. We've got the date. We haven't locked. We haven't announced the session yet, but yeah, she will be talking about it.
Lovely.
That's Sonia.
Sonia Ka.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whilst she's there, we're trying to make the most of that opportunity, and we're actually trying to organize like a Women in Tech event on Friday, the 20th of September. Yes, that's Friday the 20th. Now I know it's Women in Tech, you're invited, but we also want to make sure that our female women in tech community are supported. And I will send out details on that closer to the date once we've locked in a few screws to this event. Other than that, I think everyone's dropping off already. I don't want to waste everyone's time. Thank you so much to Martin, Minda, Doug, and Simon. That was a really well presented series of presentations there. I'm sure plenty of people will benefit from it. I'll be downloading the recording shortly after this call, and I'll be plugging it in both in this way that I had just sent out, so everyone can still access it, and also in Teams.
And
thank you, everybody. Have a lovely weekend. We just finished exactly on time.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.